YouTubers, welcome back to Maxwell Starr's beer review. Tonight, we're going to take a look at another Mill Street brew. Take a look at their coffee porter. I'm stoked to try this, mainly because of a couple of years ago, yeah, actually 2 years ago, when I first recorded my Picaroons Maple Cream review, I noted that I just bought it at the Picaroons Brewery. When I was up there, they had a big launch party from their new product that they had just launched there, which was their Imperial Pilsner, the Feels Good Imperial Pilsner, which I believe they still have. Sitting in the cooler in the Picaroons Brewhouse, they had one of these that somebody had brought down from Ontario. I remember asking if they had it for sale. Fortunately not. No, go figure. But I really wanted to try this ever since I first heard of it. A porter brewed with coffee. So, Mill Street Porter is a wonderfully sinful blend of Balzac's own dark roasted coffee, brewed to perfection with a full-bodied traditional porter. We know you'll be pleasantly surprised by this delicious and satisfying combination. Anyway, to add more to the story, I've had a number of Mill Street beers. I can't remember all the ones I've had right now. Most of them have been mediocre. Tank House being the one that stand out amazing for all their beers. There's a couple of they have that aren't bad, like Stock Ale's not bad. And, I think that's it. Anyway, I remember their Mill Street Pilsner and the Mill Street Ginger were horrible. So the lemon tea wasn't too bad. Popping the top off of this one. Let's give this a pour. Now, this beer recently became available in New Brunswick liquor stores. It has since been, like, as soon as it went out of stock, they've got tags on the shelves saying we'll be in stock soon, but I have my doubts that we're going to see this one again. It's just a nice one to try and be able to try. As far as a porter goes, it certainly does look like a porter. It's got a ton of head. The body of which looks like it's very dark. Now, it is not completely opaque, whereas you can actually see some ruby red throughout the body of the beer. Holding it up to a light, it kind of glows a bit of a brown with some ruby red tinges. It looks like it's clear, and it's not hazy. Head's dying off slowly and getting like a bumpy, pillowy appearance. Looks kind of like melting ice cream. So for the most part, it looks like it's as dark as Coca-Cola. Maybe a little, not quite as dark. And the head, the head's got like this, it's got this light brown appearance. It's actually quite nice. As far as appearances go, it looks like a really nice porter. Let's take a sniff here. Off top of that, you get this little bit of a malty sweetness and a nice fresh brewed coffee smell. But they're faint. They're very faint. It's almost like smelling like a mocha, which of course is coffee and chocolate. So you get this little bit of like a chocolate malt poking through there, mixing with the coffee. But mainly it's like this nice, mild, gourmet coffee smell mixed with this little sweet malt smell, which kind of smells like a chocolate. Very light mocha smell. And still some pretty decent head retention. Yeah, pretty nice looking beer. Why don't we give it a taste now? Well, it has a dominant earthy bitterness, but it's not too bad. That earthy bitterness, it's maybe not so much an earthy bitterness, but more of this heavily roasted malt bitterness. You get this little bits of coffee, like a coffee bitterness, mocha, like chocolate bitterness, or roasted bitterness, earthy bitterness, all blending in one big ball of kind of like earthy-ish bitterness, which perhaps is a little unbalanced. because the smell would make you think that you were about to drink this. You were about to drink this like this chocolate or sweet tasting beer, and a lot of porters do tend to be like a sweet beer, whereas this one here it's mildly sweet. It's a light sweetness, but it's not very sweet per se. It's almost got like a toasted grain in there as well. Now it does finish delightfully dry, but the biggest thing I get from this is this big ball of roasted bitterness, which is akin to drinking a black coffee. Now, you could say that the typical person who would love a black coffee would probably absolutely adore this beer. But, and while I do consider myself a coffee drinker, I'm not really the kind of person where I prefer to drink coffee straight black, or to have it quite that bitter. Now, I like a bitter coffee as well, but I typically like adding a little bit, at least like 2 teaspoons full of sugar or something to it. So it's got a little bit more sweetness than this. And as for how this works as a beer, doesn't really have enough malt to balance the beer out per se. Anyway, I'm gonna be right back with some thoughts. Beer me. And I'm back with Mill Street's Coffee Porter. So, what did I think about this particular one? I thought that the little bit of a roastiness to that porter taste was a little unbalanced, but that might appeal to someone who's really drinking this beer for the fact that it says coffee on it. Otherwise, it's actually a really decent tasting porter. Perhaps maybe not as malty sweet as I was hoping, but it's not bad. Gotta give it credit for it. I let Neely try a little bit of it during the break here, and I just asked her, like, do you think that's a little too roasty? She's like, no, it's just perfect. Of course, it's late at night, so she's not going to drink anything that has coffee in it, but otherwise I'll probably let her finish it. But to be totally honest, it's not a bad beer. I'd have to chalk it up, kind of right up there in the quality scale of things, along with their stock ale, which is a nice, decent, easy drinking beer, but not absolutely world class or the highest quality beer out there. This doesn't blow my mind quite as much as like the Tank House did. The Tank House is actually a really nice tasting dark ale with some nice like citrus hops. This here, it's a decent porter, but anybody who doesn't like a very roasty beer is not going to like this. And while I appreciate a roasty beer myself, it's starting to become a little too much because I don't feel like it's very as well balanced enough. But that could just be me. As for rating, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. Neely said that she'd either give it a 3.5 or a 4. So I'd say, you know, 3.5 out of 5 is fair enough for me. If you see it and you want to try something new, it's a pretty decent beer, and you won't be sorry about trying it. But as for personal preference, there's quite a few porters out there that I'd rather have than this, like Pickering's Man's Best Friend. All of them is so gorgeous. This one here, not so much. Anyway, thank you for watching Maxwell Starr's Beer Reviews. Talk to you guys later.